Rain hammered the cracked window like fists demanding entry. Alara Vance stood in the center of her rented room, if you could call 4 moldy walls and a leaking ceiling a room, holding a letter that should have saved her life. Instead, she was about to destroy it. The Duke of Blackmore was coming, not to rescue her, to claim what a dying man had promised him, her hand in marriage. And Alara? She was going to tell one of the most powerful men in the realm to go straight to hell. If you want to see how a woman with nothing defeats everyone who tried to bury her, stay until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. Let's go. The storm had been building for 3 days. Not just the one outside, though that was bad enough, turning the narrow streets of Greymere into rivers of freezing mud, but the one inside Alara's chest, the kind that made her hands shake when she held still too long, the kind that whispered she had maybe 2 weeks before the landlord threw her into that mud and locked the door behind her. She stood at the window, watching rain batter the glass, and thought about how quickly a life could fall apart. 6 months ago, she'd had a home. Not a grand one. Her father had been a country gentleman of modest means, but it had been hers. Then he'd died. Then the debts came. Then her stepmother, Vivian, had shown her true face, cold, calculating, and utterly without mercy. "You're a burden, Alara," Vivian had said, not even bothering to look up from her tea. "Your father spoiled you with books and nonsense, but this is the real world. And in the real world, girls like you are useful or they're gone." Alara had been gone within the week. Now she lived here, in this freezing box that smelled like damp wool and desperation. She worked when she could, mending, tutoring, anything that didn't require a reference she didn't have. It wasn't enough. It was never enough. And then, yesterday, the letter had come. She picked it up from the table now, the paper soft from how many times she'd read it. The handwriting was elegant, controlled. "Miss Vance, I write to inform you of a matter concerning your late father and a promise made in his final days. He and I had an understanding, one which, I believe, impacts your future significantly. I will call upon you tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Please be prepared to receive me. Yours, Rowan Blackmore, Duke of Thornhaven." A duke. A duke was coming here, to this room, to see her. Alara had spent hours trying to figure out what her father could possibly have promised a man like that. Her father had known lords, yes. He'd moved in those circles, barely. But a duke? What business could he have had with someone so far above him? She'd figured it out around midnight. Marriage. Her father, dying and desperate, must have sought out someone, anyone, to secure her future. And somehow, impossibly, he'd convinced the Duke of Thornhaven to agree. Probably with some clause about dowries or land or something her father didn't actually have, which meant the Duke was coming here expecting, what, a bride? A noblewoman in silk and pearls? He was going to find Alara in a patched dress, in a room that couldn't keep out the cold, with nothing to offer but a backbone made of pure stubbornness. A knock sounded at the door. Alara's heart stopped, then started again. Too fast. It was 4 o'clock exactly. She crossed the room, her worn shoes silent on the bare floor, and opened the door. The man standing there didn't look like any duke she'd imagined. Oh, he was tall, well over 6 feet, and broad-shouldered beneath a black coat that probably cost more than a year of her rent. His hair was dark, almost black, rain-slicked and pushed back from a face that was all hard angles, sharp jaw, straight nose, mouth set in a line that suggested he didn't smile often. But it was his eyes that caught her. Gray. Not soft gray. Steel gray. The kind that saw everything. He looked at her. Just looked. And Alara felt something strange happen. Like he wasn't just seeing the threadbare dress or the cracked walls behind her, but something deeper, something she usually kept buried. "Miss Vance?" His voice was low, rough-edged, not the polished drawl she'd expected. "Your Grace." She didn't curtsy, couldn't make herself. "Please, come in." He stepped inside and the room immediately felt smaller. He took up space in a way that had nothing to do with size, like the air itself rearranged around him. His gaze swept the room once. The broken chair, the thin blanket on the narrow bed, the single candle burning because she couldn't afford more. When his eyes came back to hers, something flickered in them, She couldn't name it. I apologize for the accommodations, Elara said, and hated how her voice wanted to shake. I wasn't expecting. I know what you were expecting. He cut her off, but not unkindly. And I know what you weren't. She blinked. I'm sorry? He moved to the window, looking out at the rain. Your father came to me 4 months before he died. Did you know that? No. Her throat tightened. He never said. He wouldn't have. He was proud. Desperate, but proud. Rowan turned back to her. He told me about you, about how your stepmother was positioning to take everything the moment he was gone. He asked me to intervene. By marrying me. The words tasted bitter. Yes? Why would you agree to that? Elara's hands clenched at her sides. You're a duke. You could marry anyone. Why would you tie yourself to someone you'd never met, with no fortune, no connections, no... Because I had met you. The room went very quiet. What? Elara whispered. Rowan's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes did. Softened, maybe, or sharpened. 6 years ago, Lord Ashford's winter ball. You were 17. I was there on business. Some tedious negotiation I've long forgotten. But I remember you. Elara's mind raced backward. 6 years. She'd been 17, Ashford's ball. She'd gone with her father, one of the few grand events he'd been invited to. She barely remembered it. A blur of lights and music and feeling desperately out of place. I don't remember meeting a duke. You didn't. Not formally. He took a step closer. You were in the library, hiding, I think, reading a book about naval warfare. Her breath caught. She did remember that. Sneaking away from the dancing because she couldn't bear another pitying look from the girls who whispered about her unfashionable dress. Finding that book. Getting lost in it. You looked up when I walked in, Rowan continued, his voice quieter now. And you didn't apologize for being there. Didn't simper or flutter. You just asked if I'd read it. When I said no, you told me I should. That too many men command ships without understanding the sea. Elara's heart was pounding now. You remember that? Every word. His eyes held hers. You were the only real thing in that entire ballroom, and when your father came to me dying, begging me to protect you from the vultures circling, I didn't hesitate. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. This man, this powerful, untouchable man, had been carrying the memory of one conversation for 6 years? Your Grace, Rowan. His jaw tightened. If we're to be married, you'll call me Rowan. We're not going to be married. The words came out harder than she meant them to. That's why I asked you here, to release you from that promise. His expression went dangerously still. Explain. My father had no right to bind you to me. Whatever he promised, whatever agreement you made, it's not fair to you. You deserve a wife who can bring you something other than scandal and poverty. And her voice cracked, but she forced it steady. I won't be a burden. Not to you, not to anyone. You think you're a burden. I know I am. I've been told often enough. Something dark flashed across Rowan's face. By who? Your stepmother? By everyone who matters. Then they're fools. He closed the distance between them in 2 strides. Listen to me, Elara. I don't make promises I don't intend to keep, and I didn't agree to marry you out of pity or duty or some misguided sense of honor. Then why? She tilted her head back to meet his eyes, refusing to retreat. Why would you possibly want this? Because 6 years ago, I met a girl who looked at the world like she was figuring out how to conquer it, and I've been waiting to see if she'd survive long enough to try. The words hit her like a physical blow, not kind words, not gentle, but true. She could feel the truth of them in her bones. And if I have, she whispered, survived? Then you'll do more than survive. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small box. Velvet, midnight blue. You'll thrive, but not alone. Not anymore. He opened the box. Inside was a ring, not a delicate thing, nothing dainty or sweet. The band was white gold, carved with a pattern that looked almost like waves. The stone was a sapphire, deep blue and flawless, set in a design that was both elegant and somehow fierce.
This was my mother's, Rowan said quietly. She wore it every day until she died. She was not an easy woman, not soft, but she was strong, unbreakable.
When I look at this ring, I think of her, and when I look at you, he stopped, looked at her. Then he did something that stole every thought from Alara's mind. He knelt. The Duke of Thornhaven, one of the most powerful men in the realm, knelt on the floor of her freezing rented room. Alara Vance, he said, and his voice was rough, raw. I'm not asking you to marry me because of a promise. I'm asking because I choose you. I'm asking because I believe you're exactly the kind of woman who could stand beside me, not behind me, not beneath me, and burn down anyone who tries to break us. Her hands were shaking. Her whole body was shaking. I don't have anything to give you, she managed. You have yourself. That's more than enough. He held up the ring. Marry me. Not out of obligation, not out of desperation. Marry me because you're ready to stop surviving and start winning. The rain pounded against the window. The candle flickered. Alara looked down at this man, this impossible, infuriating man who'd remembered her for 6 years, and felt something crack open inside her chest. Fear, hope, rage at everything that had brought her here, and underneath it all, something she barely recognized. Possibility. If I say yes, she said slowly, I need to know this isn't some fantasy, some rescue. I won't be saved just to be controlled. I don't want to control you. Rowan's eyes were fierce. I want to unleash you. I'm serious. If I do this, if I step into your world, I won't be silent. I won't be decorative. I won't be what they expect. Good. I'd be bored if you were. They'll hate me. They already hate me. We'll give them something to really talk about. Despite everything, Alara felt her mouth curve, just slightly. You're insane. Probably. He didn't smile, but something in his eyes warmed. Is that a yes? She looked at the ring, at him, at the room that had been her prison for months, at the future that was suddenly, impossibly, opening in front of her. One condition, she said. He waited. 1 year. We marry, and for 1 year, we see if this works. If at the end of that year I want to leave, if I choose to walk away, you let me go. No arguments, no manipulations. You give me my freedom and enough money to live independently. Most men would have recoiled, would have been insulted. Rowan just looked at her with something that might have been respect. Agreed, but the same goes for me. 1 year. At the end of it, if you're not the woman I believe you are, if you can't handle what's coming, I reserve the right to walk away too. It should have stung. Instead, it felt fair, equal. Alara took a breath, then she held out her hand. All right, Your Grace, you have a deal. Rowan slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. He rose to his feet, still holding her hand, and looked down at her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. We leave tonight, he said. Tonight? The longer you stay here, the more time they have to poison the well. Your stepmother, the gossips, everyone who'll want to tear you down before you even start. We leave tonight, we marry within the week, and by the time they realize what's happened, you'll already be a duchess. That's strategic, ruthless, necessary. He finally smiled. It was sharp-edged and dangerous, and it made him look younger. Welcome to my world, Alara. It's going to be brutal. I grew up being told I was worthless, she said quietly. I think I can handle brutal. We'll see. He released her hand and moved toward the door, already thinking 3 steps ahead. Pack what you need. I'll have a carriage here in an hour. We'll go to Thornhaven Estate tonight. The wedding will be in 4 days, small, private, just witnesses. After that, we present you to society as a fait accompli. Alara's head was spinning. 4 days? That's not enough time for them to organize against you. Trust me. He paused at the door, looking back. And Alara, when we step into that world, they're going to try to break you. They'll smile while they sharpen their knives. They'll call you fortune hunter, opportunist, gold digger. They'll whisper that you trapped me, seduced me, manipulated your way into a title. I know. Do you? His eyes were hard now. Because knowing and enduring are 2 different things. And if you endure, if you just survive their attacks, they'll never stop. You have to do more than survive. What do you suggest? You fight back. He opened the door. Rain blew in, cold and sharp. You show them exactly who you are, and you make them regret ever underestimating you. Then he was gone, leaving Alara alone in the room that suddenly felt too small, too quiet, too temporary. She looked down at the ring on her finger. The sapphire caught the candlelight and threw it back, bright and defiant. For the first time in 6 months, Alara Vance smiled. Not a soft smile, not a hopeful one, a sharp, fierce smile that was all teeth. "All right then," she whispered to the empty room. "Let's see who breaks first." She had an hour to pack a life that fit in one bag. It was more than enough time. Bob. The carriage that arrived wasn't just elegant, it was a statement. Black lacquer polished to a mirror shine, the Blackmore crest emblazoned on the door in silver and midnight blue. The horses were massive, perfectly matched grays that looked like they could run through fire without flinching. Alara stood in the doorway, her single bag in hand, and felt the weight of what she was doing settle over her. This was it. The moment she stopped being the girl who survived and became, what? A duchess? A fool? Someone's pawn in a game she didn't understand? "Miss Vance," she turned. Rowan was standing beside the carriage, rain streaming off his coat. He looked at her bag, one small, worn leather bag, and something shifted in his expression. "That's all?" "It's all I have." She lifted her chin, refusing to be ashamed. "Is it a problem?" "No." He took the bag from her, handed it to the driver. Then he turned back and offered his hand. "It just means you're starting fresh. No baggage." I have plenty of baggage. It's just not the kind you can pack. Then we'll unpack it together." He helped her into the carriage, then climbed in after her. The door closed. The driver called to the horses. And just like that, Alara was moving. Away from the room, away from the life that had tried to crush her, toward something she couldn't yet name. Rowan sat across from her, watching her face. "Regrets already?" he asked. "No." She looked out the window at the rain-soaked streets. "But I'm terrified." "Good. Fear keeps you sharp." He leaned back. "Tell me something, Alara. When you imagined your future, before all this, what did you see?" She thought about it, really thought. "Freedom," she said finally. "Not wealth, not status, just the ability to make my own choices, to not be at someone else's mercy. And now? Now I've traded one form of dependence for another." She looked at him. "Haven't I?" "That depends on you." His gaze was steady. "I meant what I said. I don't want to control you. But I won't lie and say there aren't rules in my world. Expectations. Structures that exist whether we like them or not. So what's the difference between your world and the one I'm leaving? In your world, you had no power, no voice, no choice but to endure." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "In my world, you'll have all three. But you have to take them. I can give you the platform, the protection, the name. But the power? That's yours to claim. By fighting. By refusing to break." He smiled, sharp and cold. "They're going to test you, Alara. Every woman who wanted this title for herself or her daughter. Every lord who thinks I've lost my mind. Every gossip who smells blood in the water. They're going to push and push until they find your breaking point. What if I don't have one? Then you'll be the most dangerous woman in the realm." He sat back. "And that, darling future Duchess, is exactly what I'm counting on." The carriage rolled through the night, carrying Alara toward a future she'd never dared imagine. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, she wasn't just surviving. She was preparing for war. Thornhaven Estate rose from the darkness like something out of a fever dream. Alara had seen grand houses before, from a distance, mostly, or in passing. But nothing like this. The main house stretched across the horizon, all stone and iron and windows that glowed gold against the black sky. Wings branched off in both directions, and behind it all, she could make out the silhouettes of gardens, stables, what looked like a small forest. This wasn't a house. This was a kingdom. And she was supposed to be its queen. The thought made her stomach twist. The carriage rolled to a stop in front of massive double doors. Before Rowan could move, they swung open, and a man appeared, older, silver-haired, wearing black from head to toe. His face was composed in that particular way servants had, revealing absolutely nothing. "Your Grace," he said, bowing slightly. "Welcome home." "Harrison." Rowan stepped down, then turned to help Alara. "This is Miss Vance, my fiancée." If Harrison was shocked, he didn't show it. His eyes flicked to Alara, taking in her worn cloak, her patched dress, the way she clutched her own hands to keep them from shaking, and his expression remained perfectly neutral. "Miss Vance, welcome to Thornhaven." He stepped aside. "I've prepared the rose suite for you, if you'll follow me." Alara climbed the steps, very aware of how her shoes looked against the pristine marble. Inside, the entrance hall was enormous, vaulted ceilings, a chandelier that held what must have been 100 candles, paintings in heavy gilt frames lining the walls. She felt very small, very out of place. "Alara," she turned. Rowan was watching her with those sharp gray eyes. "Breathe," he said quietly. "I am breathing." "No, you're panicking. There's a difference." He moved closer, lowering his voice. "Listen to me. This house is intimidating by design. My grandfather built it to make people feel small. Don't let it work." "Easy for you to say. You grew up here." "Which is exactly why I know every crack in the facade." He glanced at Harrison, who was waiting politely several feet away. "Get settled tonight. Rest. Tomorrow, we talk strategy." "Strategy for what?" "For the wedding. For introductions. For making sure that when we present you to society, you're not walking in blind." His jaw tightened. "They're going to come at you hard and fast, Alara. The key is being ready." She wanted to ask more, but Harrison was already moving down a hallway, clearly expecting her to follow. Rowan gave her one last look, something in it that might have been reassurance or warning. She couldn't tell, and then turned away, disappearing through another door. Alara followed Harrison through a maze of corridors. Left, right, up a staircase with a banister carved to look like twisting vines. Past rooms with closed doors. Past more paintings of stern-faced people who were probably Rowan's ancestors. All of them looking down at her like they knew she didn't belong. Finally, Harrison stopped at a door and opened it. "The Rose Suite, Miss Vance." The room beyond was larger than her entire rented space in Greymere. A massive four-poster bed dominated one wall, draped in silk the color of cream and dusty rose. There was a fireplace already lit, throwing warm light across plush carpets and furniture that looked like it had never been used. French doors led to what she assumed was a balcony. It was beautiful, overwhelming, completely alien. "I'll have water brought up for washing," Harrison said, "and I'll send a maid to help you dress for dinner." "Dinner?" Alara turned. "Tonight?" "His Grace typically dines at 8. I assumed—" "No, that's fine. I just—" She stopped, took a breath. "What time is it now?" 6:30, miss." An hour and a half. She had an hour and a half to figure out how to be someone who belonged in a room like this. "Thank you, Harrison." He bowed slightly and left, closing the door with a soft click. Alara stood in the center of the suite, listening to the silence. It was different from the silence in Greymere. Not empty, just waiting. She moved to the balcony doors and pushed them open. Cold air rushed in, carrying the smell of rain-soaked earth and something green, gardens maybe. The estate stretched out below her, barely visible in the darkness, but she could sense its size, its weight. A knock at the door made her turn. "Come in." A young woman entered, carrying a pitcher of steaming water. She was maybe 20, with dark hair pinned back and a uniform that was crisp and clean. She bobbed a quick curtsy. "Miss Vance, I'm Mary. I'll be helping you prepare for dinner." Alara almost laughed, helping her prepare, as if she had anything to prepare with. "Mary, I appreciate it, but I don't have—" She gestured vaguely at her bag, still sitting by the door. "I don't have dinner clothes. This is all I own." Mary's expression flickered. Surprise, maybe pity, but she recovered quickly. "His Grace anticipated that, miss. He had me bring some things from storage." She crossed to a wardrobe Alara hadn't noticed and opened it. Inside hung 3 dresses. Not ostentatious, Nothing with excessive lace or beading, but clearly expensive. Simple cuts in deep colors: midnight blue, forest green, burgundy. These belong to the late Duchess, Mary said quietly. His Grace's mother. He thought they might suit you. Alara stared at the dresses, at the care someone had taken to preserve them, at the fact that Rowan had thought ahead enough to provide this. They're beautiful, she managed. Shall we try the blue? Mary was already moving, efficient and gentle. It'll bring out your eyes, miss. The next hour was a blur. Mary helped her wash, helped her into the dress, which fit surprisingly well with just a few adjustments. She did something with Alara's hair, pinning it back in a style that looked effortless, but probably wasn't. When she finally let Alara look in the mirror, Alara barely recognized herself. The girl staring back looked composed, put together, like someone who might actually belong here. You look lovely, miss, Mary said, and she sounded like she meant it. Thank you. Alara touched the fabric of the dress, soft and heavy. Mary, can I ask you something? Of course. What do the staff think about me, about this marriage? Mary hesitated. Alara could see her weighing honesty against propriety. Please, Alara said, I'd rather know. They're surprised, Mary admitted. His Grace has never brought anyone here before. And you're not, forgive me, miss, you're not what they expected. Because I'm poor. Because you're unknown. The staff, they've seen nobles come and go, ladies trying to catch His Grace's eye. But he never looked twice. And then suddenly, you. She met Alara's eyes in the mirror. Some think you must be very clever or very lucky. What do you think? Mary smiled, small and genuine. I think His Grace doesn't do anything without a reason. And if he chose you, there's more to you than meets the eye. It wasn't quite a compliment, but it was honest. Alara could work with honest. A clock somewhere chimed 8. That's your cue, miss, Mary said. Dining room is down the main stairs, first door on the left. Alara took a breath, smoothed down the dress, and walked out of the room before she could lose her nerve. The dining room was somehow both intimate and intimidating. A long table that could easily seat 20, but only 2 places set, one at the head, one to the right. More candles, more paintings. And Rowan, standing by the fireplace with a glass of something amber. He turned when she entered, and she watched something shift in his expression. That dress suits you, he said. It was your mother's. I know. That's why it suits you. He gestured to the table. Sit, please. She did, very aware of the servants moving silently around them, bringing in covered dishes. Once the food was laid out, more food than 2 people could possibly eat, they retreated, leaving her and Rowan alone. He sat at the head of the table, close enough that they could talk without shouting, and looked at her. How are you holding up? I'm sitting in a dead woman's dress in a house the size of a village, Alara said. How do you think? Terrified, but hiding it well? He picked up his wine glass. That's good. You'll need that skill. Rowan, she set down her fork. We need to talk about what happens next. The wedding, yes, but after, what exactly am I walking into? A war zone. He said it casually, like he was commenting on the weather. My family, what's left of them, will see you as a threat. The ton will see you as an upstart. And there are at least a dozen women who had their sights set on becoming Duchess of Thornhaven, who will now see you as an enemy. Wonderful. Anyone else I should worry about? Your stepmother. Alara's hand tightened on her glass. She has no power over me anymore. She has the power to spread poison, to tell stories, to make sure that before you even arrive in society, everyone already thinks they know who you are. He leaned back. We need to control the narrative. How? By giving them a story they can't resist, but also can't use against you. He studied her. What did your stepmother tell people about you when you left? Alara's throat tightened. That I was ungrateful, difficult, that I refused perfectly good offers of marriage because I thought I was too good for them. Were they good offers? They were from men 3 times my age who wanted a pretty ornament. She met his eyes. I said no, repeatedly. Good. Rowan's voice was hard. Then we tell the truth, or a version of it. You're a woman who refused to be sold, who chose poverty over prostitution masquerading as marriage, who caught my attention because you had the spine to say no when everyone else was saying yes. That makes me sound strong, principled, interesting." He smiled, sharp. "Exactly what you are. And it makes anyone who tries to paint you as a gold digger look foolish." Alara turned it over in her mind. It was clever. It reframed her poverty as integrity. "But it also means admitting I was desperate," she said quietly. "No. It means admitting you were cornered. There's a difference." He set down his glass. "Alara, listen to me. The tone respects power, yes, but they also respect a good story. And yours, a woman who refused to compromise her principles, even when it cost her everything, that's a story they can work with. Until they meet me and realize I don't know which fork to use. Then we make sure you know before they see you." He stood, came around the table, starting now. "Now? You have 3 days before the wedding, 2 weeks before we make our first public appearance. In that time, you need to learn the rules. Not all of them. That would take years. But enough to hold your own." He offered his hand. "And we start with the most important lesson." She took his hand, let him pull her to her feet. "Which is? Never apologize for what you don't know. Ask questions, observe, but never ever apologize for being new to this world." His eyes were fierce. "They'll try to make you feel small, ignorant, like you don't belong. The moment you apologize, you confirm it. What do I do instead? You act like you have every right to be here. Because you do." He released her hand. "Come on, there's something I want to show you." He led her out of the dining room through more corridors until they reached a set of double doors. He pushed them open, and Alara caught her breath. The library was massive, 3 stories of books, with a spiral staircase connecting the levels. Leather chairs scattered around. A fireplace big enough to stand in. Windows that during the day must have flooded the space with light. "This was my mother's favorite room," Rowan said, walking in. "She spent more time here than anywhere else in the house." Alara followed slowly, running her fingers along the spines of books. What was she like? Difficult, brilliant, uncompromising. He pulled a book off a shelf, handed it to her. "She married my father for love, which everyone said was foolish. He was a duke, yes, but he was also cold, controlling, and had a vicious temper. She knew all of that and married him anyway." "Why?" "Because she believed she could change the game from the inside." He looked at the shelves, but Alara could tell he was seeing something else. And she did. Not by being soft or accommodating, by being harder than anyone expected. She ran this estate, managed the finances, made decisions my father hated but couldn't overturn because she was always right. Did he love her? I don't know, but he respected her, and in this world, that's rarer. He turned back to Alara. "I'm telling you this because I need you to understand what I'm offering. This isn't a fairy tale. I'm not rescuing you. I'm giving you a weapon, my name, my resources, my protection. But you have to be willing to use them." "I am." "Are you?" He stepped closer. "Because using them means making enemies. It means being called ambitious, calculating, cold. It means knowing that every smile hides a knife and learning to smile back anyway. I've been called worse. Not by people who matter. Not by people who can actually hurt you." His voice dropped. "The taunt can destroy you, Alara. Not with violence, with whispers, with exclusion, with making sure that no matter what you achieve, you'll always be the girl who didn't belong." "Then I'll prove them wrong." "How?" The question hung in the air between them. Alara looked around the library, at the books, at the evidence of a woman who'd fought her own battle in this world, and won. "By being useful," she said slowly. "You said your mother ran the estate, managed finances. What if I did the same?" Rowan's eyes sharpened. "Explain." "You said people will call me ambitious. Fine. Let them. But let it be because I'm actually doing something, not just wearing your title." She started pacing, ideas forming. "What if instead of just being the Duchess who appeared out of nowhere, I become the Duchess who improved the estate, who made things run better? You know about estate management? My father taught me. Before he died, I helped him with our land. It wasn't much, but I know how to read account books, how to spot inefficiency, how to... She stopped. Unless you don't want me involved in that. I want you involved in everything.
Rowan was looking at her like he was seeing her for the first time. But you need to understand what you're proposing. My steward, Thornton, has run this estate for 20 years. He's not going to be happy about a new duchess questioning his methods. Then he can be unhappy. She lifted her chin. You said I need to claim power. Well, I'm claiming it.
Give me access to the books. Let me prove I'm not just decorative. A slow smile spread across Rowan's face, dangerous and pleased. All right, he said. But we do this smart. Tomorrow I'll introduce you to the household. You'll meet the staff, the steward, the key people who keep this place running. You'll be polite, gracious. Then, once they've underestimated you, you strike. Strike how? By finding something they've been doing wrong, something small but significant, and fixing it. He moved closer. Can you do that? Yes. You're sure? Because if you try this and fail, it'll confirm every doubt they have about you.
I won't fail. The confidence in her own voice surprised her, but it was there, real, solid. Rowan heard it too. She could see it in the way his expression shifted. Then we have a deal, he said. You want control of the estate affairs? You'll have it, but you have to earn it, and you have to be ruthless about it. I can be ruthless. We'll see. He walked to the door, then paused. One more thing. The wedding is in 3 days, small ceremony, just witnesses, like I said. But after that, we announce it publicly. And that's when everything changes. I know. Do you? He turned back. Because the moment we announce, Elara, there's no going back. You'll be a duchess, my wife. And every decision you make, every word you speak, will be scrutinized. Are you ready for that? She thought about the freezing room in Grey Mere, about Vivian's cold eyes, about every person who'd looked at her like she was nothing. I'm ready, she said. Good. He opened the door. Get some rest. Tomorrow, we start preparing you for battle. After he left, Elara stood alone in the library, surrounded by thousands of books and the ghost of a woman who'd fought her own war. She pulled out a book at random, a treatise on estate management dated 15 years ago. She opened it, saw notes in the margins in elegant handwriting, the late Duchess's notes. Elara sat down in one of the leather chairs and started reading. She read until the candles burned low and her eyes ached. Read until she could barely keep them open. Read until Mary came to find her and gently suggested she should sleep. But even as she climbed into the massive bed in the Rose Suite, her mind was racing. Tomorrow, she'd meet the household. The people who would judge her, test her, wait for her to fail. And she'd smile, be gracious, play the part they expected, and then she'd show them exactly who Elara Vance really was. The next morning came too fast and too bright. Mary woke her with tea and another dress, this one a deep emerald that made Elara's skin look less pale. She helped her dress, did her hair again, and by the time the clock struck 9, Elara was standing outside Rowan's study, trying to calm her racing heart. She knocked. Come. Rowan was at his desk, papers spread in front of him. He looked up, nodded approval at her appearance. Ready? He asked. No, but let's do it anyway. He almost smiled. That's the spirit. He led her down to the main hall where the household staff had assembled. There were more people than Elara had expected, maybe 30 in total, all standing in neat rows, all watching her with varying degrees of curiosity and skepticism. Harrison stood at the front. Beside him was a man in his 50s, gray-haired and stern-faced, wearing a coat that marked him as someone important. The steward, Elara guessed. Everyone? Rowan said, his voice carrying easily through the hall. This is Miss Elara Vance. In 3 days, she'll be my wife and your duchess. I expect you to treat her with the same respect you show me. Murmurs ran through the group. Elara kept her face neutral, her posture straight. Miss Vance comes from a background of managing estates, Rowan continued, and Elara felt a flicker of gratitude that he was framing it that way. She'll be taking an active role in the household. I trust you'll all make her feel welcome. More murmurs. These ones less certain. The stern-faced man stepped forward. Your Grace, if I may, I'm Thornton, the estate steward.
I'd be happy to brief Miss Vance on how we run things here at Thornhaven. Translation. I'll explain why she shouldn't interfere.
Alara caught it. So did Rowan. That would be excellent, Thornton, Rowan said smoothly. Miss Vance is eager to learn. Aren't you, darling? The endearment was calculated. A reminder that she wasn't just some stranger. She was his. Very eager, Alara said, meeting Thornton's eyes.
I'm sure there's much I can learn from someone with your experience.
Thornton's expression flickered. He'd expected defensiveness, maybe. Or meekness. Not courtesy with steel underneath. Of course, miss. Shall we start with the account books? Perfect. She followed him to a smaller office off the main hall, very aware of the eyes tracking her movement. Inside, Thornton settled behind a desk covered in ledgers and gestured for her to sit. Now then, he said, opening one of the books. Thornhaven is a large estate. We have tenant farms, investments, properties in 3 counties. It's complex work, miss. I've been managing it for 20 years. I'm sure you have. Alara leaned forward, looking at the columns of numbers. Walk me through a typical month. He did. And as he talked, Alara listened, really listened. She asked questions, careful, pointed questions that showed she understood what he was saying. She took mental notes of the numbers, the patterns, the places where things seemed off. Because there were places. Small things. A line item that didn't quite add up. An expense that seemed high for what it was. Nothing obvious. But there. After an hour, Thornton sat back. Well, miss, I hope that's given you a sense of how we operate. It has. Thank you. She stood. Would it be possible for me to review these books in more detail, just to familiarize myself? His eyes narrowed slightly. If you wish, though I assure you everything is in order. I don't doubt it. I just learn better by doing. She smiled, warm and harmless. Would this afternoon work? I suppose. Wonderful. I'll see you then. She left before he could object, walking back through the halls with her head high. Inside, her heart was pounding. She'd seen something. She was sure of it. Now she just had to prove it. That afternoon, she returned to Thornton's office with a notebook and spent 3 hours going through the ledgers. He watched her for the first hour, then got bored and left her to it, which was exactly what she'd hoped for, because the more she looked, the more she found. Small discrepancies, expenses that were just slightly inflated, money going to vendors that didn't quite exist. It was subtle, clever, the kind of thing you'd only notice if you were looking for it. Thornton wasn't embezzling huge sums, he was skimming, a little here, a little there. Over 20 years, it probably added up to a fortune. Alara sat back, her mind racing. This was it. This was her opening. But she couldn't just accuse him. She needed proof. Solid, undeniable proof. She spent the next 2 days building her case. She compared ledgers, cross-referenced expenses, found receipts that didn't match invoices. And slowly, methodically, she built a file that showed exactly what Thornton had been doing. The night before the wedding, she brought it to Rowan. He was in his study, working late. When she knocked and entered, he looked up, surprised. Alara, shouldn't you be resting? I found something. She set the file on his desk. In the account books. Thornton's been skimming money for years. Rowan's expression went very still. Show me. She did. Walked him through every discrepancy, every false expense, every piece of evidence she'd found. Rowan listened in silence, his jaw getting tighter with each page. When she finished, he sat back. You're sure about this? Completely. This is... He looked at the file, then at her. Alara, do you understand what you've just done? Exposed a thief. You've declared war. He stood, pacing. Thornton has been here for 2 decades. He has allies, people who will defend him. If you come at him with this and it goes badly, you'll make powerful enemies before you're even a duchess. And if I don't come at him at all, I let him keep stealing from you. It's not about the money. I know. It's about power. She met his eyes. You told me to prove myself, to show I could handle this world. Well, I'm showing you. Rowan stared at her. Then slowly he smiled. All right, he said. But we do this right. Tomorrow, we marry. The day after,
We call a household meeting, and we destroy him in front of everyone. Why wait? Because tomorrow you become a duchess, and when we expose him, I want you doing it with my full authority behind you." His eyes glinted. "Let him think he's safe for one more day, then we strike." Alara felt something fierce and bright unfurl in her chest. What if he runs? He won't. He thinks you're just a pretty distraction. Rowan came around the desk. He has no idea what's about to hit him. Neither do I, really. Yes, you do. He touched her chin, tilted her face up. You're about to become the most dangerous woman in this house. And Thornton? He's just the first casualty. The wedding the next day was brief, almost brutal in its efficiency. A small chapel on the estate grounds, Harrison and Mary as witnesses, a priest who spoke the words fast like he had somewhere else to be. When Rowan slipped the Duchess's ring onto her finger, another heirloom, heavy gold with diamonds, Alara felt the weight of it settle like a shackle or a crown. She wasn't sure which. "You may kiss your bride," the priest said. Rowan leaned in. The kiss was quick, formal, but when he pulled back, there was something in his eyes that made her breath catch. "Hello, Duchess," he murmured. And just like that, Alara Vance ceased to exist. In her place stood the Duchess of Thornhaven. The next morning, Rowan called the household meeting. They gathered in the main hall again, confused and curious. Thornton stood near the front, looking annoyed at the interruption. Rowan stood at the head of the room, Alara beside him. "Thank you all for coming," he said. "I wanted to address a matter that's come to my attention. It concerns the estate finances." Thornton went very still. "My wife," Rowan emphasized the word, "has been reviewing our books, and she's found some irregularities." The room erupted in murmurs. Thornton's face flushed red. "Your Grace, I assure you—" "Let her speak," Rowan cut him off. Then he turned to Alara. "Duchess?" This was it, her moment. Alara stepped forward, holding the file she'd compiled. "Over the past 20 years," she said, her voice steady and clear, "approximately £40,000 have been siphoned from the estate through false expenses and inflated invoices." Gasps, whispers. Thornton's face went from red to white. "That's a lie," he sputtered. "I've served this house faithfully for—" "You've served yourself." Alara opened the file. "Vendor receipts that don't match payments. Expenses for repairs that were never made, supply costs inflated by 30%. She looked up. "Should I continue?" The silence was deafening. Thornton looked at Rowan, desperate. "Your Grace, surely you don't believe this. This girl over me. I've been loyal to your family since before she was born, and you've been stealing from us just as long," Rowan said coldly. "The evidence is clear, Thornton. What's unclear is whether we handle this privately or publicly." Alara watched Thornton's face crumble, watched him realize he had no way out. "Privately," he whispered. "Please. Then you resign. Today. You sign a full confession, and you leave Thornhaven by nightfall." Rowan's voice was merciless. "Or we take this to the magistrate and you hang." Thornton collapsed into a chair, all fight gone out of him. "I'll sign," he said hoarsely. Within an hour, it was done. Thornton signed the confession, packed his things, and left through the back entrance like a criminal. The household staff stood in shocked silence. Rowan turned to them. "Let this be clear," he said. "The Duchess of Thornhaven is not decorative. She's not a figurehead. She has my full authority in all matters of estate management, and anyone who questions that will find themselves following Thornton out the door." No one said a word. Rowan looked at Alara. "Duchess, is there anything you'd like to add?" Alara looked at the assembled staff, at their wary, uncertain faces. "Just one thing," she said. "I'm not here to make enemies. I'm here to make this estate run better. If you work with me, we'll get along fine. If you work against me—" She paused. "Well, you've seen what happens. It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. And from the looks on their faces, they'd heard it loud and clear." The staff dispersed slowly, whispering among themselves, throwing glances back at Alara like she'd grown a second head. She stood perfectly still, refusing to let them see her hands trembling. She'd just ended a man's career, destroyed his reputation, in front of witnesses. and she felt absolutely nothing except a cold, sharp satisfaction. "Well," Rowan said quietly once they were alone, "that was decisive." "Was I too harsh?" "No." He turned to face her fully. "You were perfect. Ruthless, but fair. That's exactly what they needed to see." He paused. "How do you feel?" "Like I just jumped off a cliff and I'm still waiting to hit the ground." "You won't. I've got you." He moved closer. "But you know what you've done, don't you? You've made yourself a target. Anyone who was planning to underestimate you just changed their strategy." "Good. Let them come prepared. I'd rather fight an honest enemy than a hidden one." Something flashed in Rowan's eyes. Approval, heat, something she couldn't quite name. "We need to talk about the season." "The season?" "The social season. Balls, dinners, presentations. It starts in 2 weeks, and we need to make an appearance. A statement." He walked to the window, looking out over the estate grounds. "That's when you'll meet the real battlefield. The ton. The wolves in silk dresses. The men who'll smile while they plot. The women who'll befriend you just to find your weaknesses." He glanced back. Thornton was practice. What's coming next is war. Before Alara could respond, Harrison appeared in the doorway. "Your Grace, forgive the interruption. There's a visitor." "I'm not receiving anyone today," Rowan said sharply. "It's Lady Vivian Vance, Your Grace, the young Duchess's stepmother." The room went very cold. Ilara felt her spine lock. "She's here?" "In the entrance hall, miss. Forgive me, Your Grace. She's quite insistent on seeing you both." Rowan's expression went dangerous. "Did she say why?" "She claims she has information vital to the Duchess's reputation. She says if you don't receive her, she'll take it directly to the society papers." Alara's stomach dropped. Of course Vivian wouldn't just disappear. Of course she'd come hunting the moment she heard about the marriage. "Send her away," Alara said. "Whatever she has to say, I don't want to hear it." "No," Rowan's voice was hard. "We see her, now, on our terms in our house where she has no power." He looked at Harrison. "Show her to the drawing room. We'll be there in 5 minutes." Harrison bowed and left. Alara turned on Rowan. "You can't seriously want to give her an audience. I want to know what she thinks she has on you, and I want to watch her face when she realizes it won't work." He caught her hand. "Trust me, we're not the ones who should be afraid right now." "I'm not afraid of her." "Liar. You're terrified. I can see it." His grip tightened. "But here's the thing, Alara. You're not that girl in Greymere anymore. You're a duchess, my wife, and she's just a bitter woman who lost her meal ticket the day you walked out. She can still hurt me, with rumors, with lies. Let her try." His smile was cold. "I'll destroy her." They walked to the drawing room together. Alara's heart was hammering so hard she thought it might crack a rib. The last time she'd seen Vivian, she'd been packing her bag in that freezing room, listening to her stepmother's cold pronouncement that she was no longer welcome. Now she was about to face her as an equal, as someone with power. The drawing room doors opened. Vivian stood by the fireplace, examining a porcelain figurine with the critical eye of someone pricing items for auction. She was dressed in deep purple, mourning colors, though her father had been dead nearly a year. Her blonde hair was perfectly styled, her face composed in that particular expression of manufactured concern she'd perfected. When she turned and saw Alara, something flickered across her face. Shock. Calculation. Then that familiar smile. "Alara, darling, don't you look different?" "Lady Vance." Alara kept her voice neutral. "What are you doing here?" "Is that any way to greet your mother?" "You're not my mother. You were my father's wife. There's a difference." Vivian's smile tightened. Then she turned to Rowan, and her whole demeanor shifted, softened, became almost flirtatious. "Your Grace, I must apologize for the intrusion, but when I heard about the marriage, I simply had to come, to ensure you knew what you were getting into." "I know exactly what I'm getting into," Rowan said coldly. "The question is, what are you doing here?" "Protecting your interests, of course." Vivian moved closer, her voice dropping to something conspiratorial. "You see, Your Grace, Alara is my stepdaughter, and I feel responsible for her, which is why I feel obligated to tell you certain
facts about her character that you may not be aware of. Such as? Such as her tendency toward hysteria, her inability to manage even basic household duties, her history of rejecting perfectly suitable marriage proposals out of sheer stubbornness. Vivian's eyes cut to Alara. I tried to help her, Your Grace, truly, but she's always been difficult, ungrateful. Alara felt rage rising in her chest, hot and sharp. But before she could speak, Rowan laughed. It wasn't a kind sound. Let me guess, he said. These suitable proposals were from men 3 times her age who wanted a young wife to control. Am I close? Vivian's composure slipped. They were respectable men with good prospects. They were predators, and she was smart enough to refuse them. Rowan moved to stand beside Alara, a united front. Anything else you'd like to share about my wife's character? Wife. Vivian said the word like it tasted bad. Yes, about that. I have to wonder, Your Grace, what exactly Alara told you about her circumstances, because I suspect she may have embellished certain details. Meaning? Meaning she was not destitute when she left my home. I offered her a place to stay. Support. She chose to leave. To make herself seem more sympathetic, I imagine. That's a lie, Alara said, her voice shaking with fury. You threw me out. You told me I was a burden and you wanted me gone. I told you that you needed to learn responsibility, that I couldn't support you forever. Vivian's voice was reasonable, patient, the voice of a long-suffering parent. If you chose to interpret that as rejection, well, that says more about your state of mind than mine. It was masterful, really, twisting everything, making Alara sound irrational, overdramatic, making herself sound like the victim. Your Grace, Vivian continued, turning back to Rowan, I'm sure Alara is fond of you, but I have to ask, did she tell you about her father's debts? About the fact that she brings nothing to this marriage but scandal? She told me everything, Rowan said flatly. Did she tell you that she has a younger half-sister, my daughter Lydia, who, unlike Alara, has been raised properly, who knows how to comport herself in society? And there it was, the real reason Vivian had come. Let me guess, Rowan said. You're here to suggest I made a mistake, that I should have married your daughter instead. I'm merely pointing out that there are alternatives. If you wanted to correct this situation. Vivian's smile was poisonous sweet. Lydia is 17, beautiful, accomplished in all the social graces. She would make an excellent duchess. And of course, annulments can be arranged, especially when the marriage is so new. Alara felt like she'd been slapped. Vivian had come here to replace her, to convince Rowan that her daughter was the better choice. Get out, Alara said. Excuse me? I said get out, now, before I have you thrown out. You have no authority here. She has every authority. Rowan's voice cut like a blade. She's the Duchess of Thornhaven. This is her house, and you are trespassing. Vivian's mask cracked. Your Grace, please, be reasonable. Surely you can see. I see a woman who abused her stepdaughter, threw her into poverty, and is now trying to profit from her success. Rowan moved forward, and something in his bearing made Vivian take a step back. Let me make this very clear, Lady Vance. My wife is not replaceable. Not by your daughter. Not by anyone. And if you ever suggest otherwise again, I will make it my personal mission to ensure you are ruined. Socially, financially, completely. Do you understand? Vivian's face went white, then red. You would threaten me? For her? Without hesitation. She's a nobody. A girl with no family, no fortune, no... She's mine. The words were quiet, but absolute. And I protect what's mine. Vivian looked between them, and Alara saw the moment she realized she'd lost. Her hands clenched into fists. You'll regret this, she hissed. Both of you. When society learns what she really is, when they discover she trapped you with lies and manipulation, you'll wish you'd listened to me. Is that a threat? Alara asked quietly. It's a promise. I'll make sure everyone knows exactly who you are, Alara. The ungrateful, scheming little... Enough! Rowan's voice was ice. Harrison! The butler appeared immediately, as if he'd been waiting. Escort Lady Vance from the premises. If she resists, call the constable. Your Grace. Harrison moved toward Vivian, who stumbled backward. You can't do this. I'm her family. You're nothing, Rowan said.
And if you come back, if you speak one word against my wife in public, I will have you arrested for trespassing and slander. Are we clear? Vivian looked at Ilara one last time. Her eyes were filled with such pure hatred that Ilara actually felt cold. This isn't over, Vivian said. Then Harrison was guiding her out, her protests fading down the hallway. The moment the door closed, Ilara's knees went weak. She grabbed the back of a chair to steady herself. That was... She couldn't finish. The opening move, Rowan said grimly. She'll go straight to the gossips now. By tomorrow, half of London will have heard some twisted version of your story. Can we stop it? No, but we can control the narrative. He started pacing. We need to get ahead of this. Make our debut before she poisons the well completely. You said we had 2 weeks. We did. Now we have 2 days. He stopped, looked at her. There's a ball, tomorrow night. Lord Ashford's spring gala. Half the ton will be there. We go. We present you. We show them that you're not some desperate fortune hunter. You're a duchess who belongs. I'm not ready. You are. You just don't know it yet. He crossed to her, caught her shoulders. Listen to me. Vivian made a mistake coming here. She showed her hand. Now we know exactly what she's going to say about you, which means we can prepare a defense. What defense? She'll tell everyone I'm a nobody who trapped you. And we'll tell them you're a woman of principle who refused to be sold to the highest bidder, a woman I pursued because I admired her intelligence and strength. His eyes burned into hers. We turn her attack into proof of your character. That won't be enough. Not for them. Then we give them something else, something they can't ignore. He released her, thinking. What if we made a grand gesture, something that proves you're not just decorative? Like what? Like... He paused. The estate. You've taken over management from Thornton. What if at the ball we announce that you're implementing new reforms, improving tenant conditions, making real changes? Ilara's mind started racing. That could work, but it needs to be something immediate, something they can verify. Then we do it before the ball. Tomorrow morning, we visit the tenant farms. We announce the reforms in person. By tomorrow night, word will have spread. And when we arrive at the ball, you won't just be the new Duchess. You'll be the Duchess who's actually improving lives. It was risky, bold, exactly the kind of move that could backfire spectacularly. What kind of reforms? Ilara asked. That's up to you. You're the one who knows the books. What would make the biggest impact? Ilara thought about the ledgers she'd studied, about the complaints she'd seen buried in old correspondence, about the rot Thornton had let fester. Rent reduction, she said slowly. 10% across all tenant farms. And we invest in proper repairs, roofs, drainage, things that have been neglected. Rowan whistled. That's significant. It'll cost us. Can we afford it? With what you're saving us from Thornton's skimming? Yes, barely. He smiled. It's perfect. Generous but practical. It shows you understand the estate and care about the people. Or it makes me look naive, like I'm trying to buy approval. Let them think that. As long as the tenants benefit, who cares what the ton thinks? Ilara looked at him, really looked, at this man who'd appeared in her life like a storm and turned everything upside down, who was now planning to parade her in front of society's wolves and hoping she'd survive. Why are you doing this? She asked quietly. Really, not the story you tell everyone else, the truth. Rowan was silent for a long moment. Because I'm tired, he said finally. Tired of this world, of the games, of everyone wanting something from me. And then you didn't want anything. You tried to release me from a promise that would have saved you. You chose poverty over compromise. He met her eyes. You reminded me that there are still people who have principles, who don't bend, and I want that. I want someone beside me who won't break. Everyone breaks eventually. Then we'll break together. He held out his hand. Tomorrow, the farms in the morning, the ball at night. We show them who the Duchess of Thornhaven really is. Ilara took his hand. All right, she said. Let's go to war. The next morning came gray and cold. Alara dressed in one of the simpler dresses Mary had provided. She didn't want to show up at the tenant farms looking like she was playing dress-up. They took a carriage to the first farm, where a man named Thomas Heath worked land that had been in his family for 3 generations. He came out of his cottage when he saw the Blackmore crest, wiping his hands on his trousers, looking nervous.
"Your Grace," he said, bowing awkwardly. "I wasn't expecting, that is, if this is about the rent, I have most of it. Just need another week." "It's not about the rent, Mr. Heath," Alara said, stepping down from the carriage. "May we speak with you?" He looked confused but nodded. His wife appeared in the doorway, holding a baby, watching with wide eyes. "Mr. Heath," Alara began, "I've recently taken over estate management from Mr. Thornton, and in reviewing the books, I've noticed that rent rates haven't been adjusted fairly in years. Some have gone up, maintenance has gone down. Is that accurate?" Thomas glanced at Rowan, then back at Alara. "Well, yes, Your Grace, but that's just how it is. We manage." "You shouldn't have to just manage. Not on Blackmore land." She took a breath. "Effective immediately, your rent is reduced by 10%, and we'll be sending workers to repair your roof. I saw the leak damage in the account records." Thomas stared. What?" 10% reduction and proper repairs." Alara pulled out a document she'd prepared. "This is the new agreement. Same terms otherwise, just lower rent and a guarantee of maintenance within 30 days of reporting any issues." "Why?" His voice was rough. "Why would you do this?" "Because it's right. Because this estate has been taken from you without giving back, and because I won't be the Duchess who ignores what's broken." Thomas's wife came forward, tears streaming down her face. "Your Grace, Thank you. Thank you." They visited 6 more farms that morning. Each time, the same reaction: shock, disbelief, then overwhelming gratitude. By noon, word was spreading. By the time they returned to Thornhaven, Alara's feet ached and her voice was hoarse, but something warm had settled in her chest. "That felt good," she said as they climbed the steps. "Wait until tonight," Rowan said. "Let's see if it still feels good when you're facing the vultures." The ball was being held at Ashford House, the same place where Rowan had first seen Alara 6 years ago. The irony wasn't lost on her as their carriage pulled up to the grand entrance, light spilling from every window, the sound of music and laughter floating out into the night. Alara wore a gown Mary had somehow procured in record time, deep sapphire blue silk that brought out her eyes, with a neckline that was elegant without being scandalous. The Duchess's diamonds glittered at her throat and wrists. She looked the part. Now she just had to play it. "Remember," Rowan said as they waited to be announced, "they'll try to rattle you. Don't let them, and stay close to me." "I can handle myself." "I know, but I'd rather not have to duel anyone tonight." Then the doors opened and a voice rang out. "His Grace the Duke of Thornhaven and Her Grace the Duchess of Thornhaven." The ballroom went silent. Every eye turned to them. Alara felt the weight of hundreds of gazes, assessing, judging, measuring her worth in a single glance. She lifted her chin and walked down the stairs like she owned them. The silence broke into whispers. She caught fragments. "So young. Where did she come from? Heard she was nobody? Trapped him somehow?" Rowan's hand was firm on her elbow, steadying her. Lord Ashford appeared, all practiced charm. "Your Grace, what a delightful surprise. We hadn't heard you'd married." "It was a private ceremony," Rowan said smoothly. "May I present my wife, Alara?" Enchanted. Ashford kissed Alara's hand, but his eyes were calculating. "And where did you two meet, Your Grace?" "Here, actually," Alara said. 6 years ago, in your library." Ashford blinked. "My library?" "I was reading about naval warfare. The Duke was kind enough to engage in conversation." She smiled. "I imagine he was bored with the usual ballroom chatter." "How unconventional." Ashford's smile didn't reach his eyes. They moved deeper into the ballroom. Every step brought new stares, new whispers. Women clustered in groups, heads together, eyes darting toward Alara. Men watched with open curiosity or thinly veiled disdain. A woman approached, tall, beautiful, dripping in emeralds. Lady Catherine Westbrook, Rowan had warned her, one of the most influential hostesses in society.
Your Grace, she purred at Rowan, you've been keeping secrets. Not secrets, just private matters. How very mysterious. Catherine's eyes raked over Alara. And you, my dear, you must tell me everything. How did you manage to capture our most elusive duke? I didn't capture anyone, Alara said evenly. We chose each other. How romantic. And your family? I don't believe I know the Vances. My father was a country gentleman. He passed away last year. Oh, you poor thing. And your mother? Also deceased. Alara kept her voice steady. I was raised by my stepmother until recently. Until you married a duke. Catherine's smile was sharp. How fortunate. Catherine, Rowan's voice held warning. Perhaps we should discuss something more interesting than my wife's lineage. Have you heard about the estate reforms we've implemented? Reforms? Catherine's interest sharpened. What sort? Rent reductions for our tenant farmers. Improved maintenance. The Duchess has taken over estate management and is making significant improvements. Several people nearby had stopped to listen. Catherine's eyebrow arched. How progressive. Though I wonder, Your Grace, and she addressed Alara, if you have the experience for such responsibilities, estate management is quite complex. I find it straightforward enough. Numbers don't lie. Alara met her gaze. Unlike people. A ripple of reaction went through the listeners. Catherine's smile froze. How clever you are. I can see why Rowan is smitten. She leaned closer, voice dropping. A word of advice, dear. In our world, being too clever is dangerous, especially for women who are still finding their place. I found my place, Alara said quietly. Right here. Catherine's eyes narrowed. Then she smiled again, bright and poisonous. Of course you have. How silly of me. She drifted away, already whispering to her companions. That could have gone better, Rowan murmured. Or worse. The evening dragged on. Introduction after introduction. Each one a small battle. Some were openly hostile. Others played at kindness while probing for weaknesses. Alara answered every question, parried every subtle insult, held her ground. She was exhausted. And then she saw her. Vivian. Standing across the ballroom in a gown of deep crimson, talking animatedly to a group of matrons. When she spotted Alara, she smiled. She's here, Alara breathed. I see her. Rowan's hand tightened on hers. Ignore her. Don't give her the satisfaction. But Vivian was already moving toward them, the matrons following like a flock of particularly vicious birds. Alara, Vivian's voice carried across the ballroom. My dear stepdaughter, I was just telling Lady Pembroke and the others about you. The matrons surrounded them. Lady Pembroke was a formidable woman in her 60s, with a face like carved granite. Your stepdaughter, Lady Vance? Pembroke's voice was clipped. I wasn't aware. Oh yes, I raised her after her dear mother passed. Vivian's voice dripped false sweetness. Though I must confess, Your Grace, I'm surprised to see her here. The last I knew, she was living in quite reduced circumstances. Because you threw her out, Rowan said coldly. I encouraged her to find her own way. There's a difference. Vivian turned to the matrons. Alara was always so headstrong, refused every suitable match I found for her. I tried to teach her about compromise, about duty, but she preferred her books to reality. Perhaps because the matches you found were with men who wanted to own her, not marry her, Alara said. Gasps from the matrons. Such dramatics, Vivian sighed. You see what I mean? Always so emotional, so unsuitable for refined society. Unsuitable, Lady Pembroke looked at Alara. On what grounds? Well, for starters, she has no training in running a household, no social graces, no... She's reduced our estate expenses by 15% in a week, Rowan interrupted. Implemented reforms that have our tenants singing her praises. And she exposed a corrupt steward who'd been stealing from us for 20 years. If that's unsuitable, I'll take it over suitable any day. The matrons exchanged glances. Vivian's smile slipped. Your Grace, surely you're not saying she actually manages the estate? That's work for stewards, not... My wife is more than capable. Rowan's voice was steel. And frankly, Lady Vance, your continued attempts to undermine her are becoming tedious. I'm merely concerned for your reputation. When it becomes known that you married someone so far beneath you, be very careful how you finish that sentence, Rowan said softly, dangerously. Vivian's face flushed red. I am her family. I have a right to express concern. You have no rights where my wife is concerned. He stepped forward. In fact, I think it's time we discussed your own circumstances, Lady Vance. Your late husband's estate, there were rather significant debts, weren't there? Debts you concealed while throwing your stepdaughter into the street? Vivian went pale. That's private. As private as the fact that you've been living off creditors for months? That the only reason you're here tonight is because you're desperately seeking a wealthy husband for your daughter to save you from ruin? The matrons were watching now with open interest. Vivian looked like she'd been struck. How dare you? No. Alara stepped forward. How dare you? You come into my home, you try to destroy my marriage. You spread lies about me to anyone who'll listen. And for what? Because you're angry I escaped? Because you can't control me anymore? You're nothing, Vivian hissed. A girl with no family, no breeding. I'm a duchess. You're the widow of a minor gentleman drowning in debt. Alara's voice was cold. We are not the same. Vivian's hand came up, fast, vicious, headed straight for Alara's face. Alara caught her wrist mid-swing. The ballroom gasped collectively. Don't, Alara said quietly, her grip iron tight. Don't you dare. Let go of me. Gladly. Alara released her, and Vivian stumbled backward. Now get out. This is Lord Ashford's home, and you're causing a scene. I'll ruin you for this. I'll tell everyone what you really are. Please do. Rowan's voice cut through the crowd that had gathered. Tell them she's a woman who refused to be broken by poverty or cruelty. Tell them she's intelligent enough to manage an estate better than men who've done it for decades. Tell them she had the courage to say no to you, and everyone like you. He smiled, cold and sharp. Go ahead. Ruin her with the truth. Vivian looked around at the watching crowd, at Lady Pembroke's thoughtful expression, at the whispers spreading like wildfire. She'd lost, and she knew it. This isn't over, she said one last time, her voice shaking. Yes, Alara said quietly. It is. Vivian turned and fled, pushing through the crowd, her crimson dress a slash of color disappearing into the night. The ballroom erupted in conversation. Lady Pembroke stepped forward. Your Grace, she said to Alara. That was enlightening. I apologize for the disruption. Don't. Pembroke's stern face softened slightly. I've known Vivian Vance for years. Grasping, manipulative creature. If even half of what your husband said is true, she deserved worse. She paused. You managed the Thornhaven accounts? Truly? Yes, ma'am. And implemented these reforms yourself? With the Duke's support. Pembroke looked at Rowan. Your mother would have liked her. Coming from Pembroke, it was practically a benediction. Yes, Rowan said quietly. She would have. Other women were approaching now, cautious, curious. The tenor of the conversation shifted, not friendly exactly, but interested. Alara had proven she wasn't weak, wasn't breakable. And in this world, that mattered. The rest of the night passed in a blur, more introductions, but different now, more questions about the estate, about her methods, about her plans. Rowan stayed close, a solid presence at her side. When they finally left, well past midnight, Alara's feet were screaming and her head pounded, but she felt something like triumph. They rode home in silence. Only when they were back at Thornhaven, standing in the entrance hall with the servants dismissed, did Rowan speak. You were magnificent tonight. I nearly attacked my stepmother in public. You defended yourself. There's a difference. He touched her face gently. She won't come back. You destroyed her. Good, he smiled. You should rest. Tomorrow, there'll be more. A sharp knock echoed through the hall. They both turned. It was past 1 in the morning. Who would... Harrison appeared, looking uncharacteristically rattled. Your Grace, forgive me. There's a situation. What kind of situation? A messenger from your cousin, Lord Blackmore. Harrison's face was grim. He's calling an emergency family council. Tomorrow. He's challenging the validity of your marriage. The triumph Alara had felt drained away like water through cracks. On what grounds? Rowan's voice was lethal. He claims the Duchess married you under false pretenses, that she concealed her stepmother's debts and her family's financial ruin. He's saying it constitutes fraud and is demanding an annulment. Alara's blood turned to ice. Can he do that? He can try, Rowan said, and if he gets enough of the family to agree, he can make it very difficult for us. Why would he want an annulment? Harrison and Rowan exchanged a look. Because, Rowan said slowly, if our marriage is annulled, he's next in line for the title. He inherits everything. He wants to destroy our marriage to steal your title? He's wanted it for years. This is just his excuse. Rowan's jaw was set. But he won't win. I won't let him. What do we do? We go to the council tomorrow. We face them. And we prove that this marriage is legitimate and unbreakable. He took her hand. No matter what it costs. Alara looked at him, at this man who'd given her everything and might now lose it all because of her. I'm sorry, she whispered. If I'd known... Don't. His grip tightened. Don't apologize for surviving. This is not your fault. But as they stood in the silent hall, with the weight of tomorrow's battle pressing down on them, Alara couldn't shake one terrible thought. Maybe Vivian had been right. Maybe she was going to destroy everything Rowan had built, and maybe there was nothing she could do to stop it. Alara didn't sleep. She sat in the library until dawn, surrounded by law books and marriage contracts, her eyes burning from reading by candlelight. Every page she turned felt like searching for a weapon she wasn't sure existed. Rowan found her there as gray light started seeping through the windows. You've been here all night, he said. Not a question. I needed to understand the law. What grounds they actually have. She looked up at him and knew her face showed the exhaustion she felt. Rowan, if they prove I concealed information, if they can argue I misrepresented myself, they can't. He crossed to her, took the book from her hands. Because you didn't misrepresent anything. I knew exactly who you were when I proposed. But did you know about Vivian's debts? About the full extent of... I knew your stepmother was a viper. I knew you came from nothing. I chose you anyway. He knelt beside her chair. Alara, look at me. This council meeting isn't about facts. It's about power. My cousin wants the title, and he's using you as an excuse to challenge for it. Then maybe I should just... Don't. His voice was sharp. Don't even think about walking away. That's exactly what he wants. I don't want to be the reason you lose everything. You're not. He is, and he's going to lose. Rowan stood, started pacing. But we need to be strategic. The family council consists of 5 members, my cousin Edmund, my Aunt Marguerite, my Uncle George, and 2 family friends who hold advisory positions, Lord Hartley and Lady Ashton. Edmund only needs 3 votes to force an inquiry into the marriage. How many will vote with him? Edmund himself, obviously. Uncle George will follow Edmund's lead. He's weak and Edmund controls his debts. That's 2. He paused. Aunt Marguerite is unpredictable. She despised my mother, which means she might hate you on principle, or she might respect you for the same reasons she hated my mother. Hard to say. And the advisors? Hartley is old-fashioned, traditional. He'll vote for stability, which could go either way. Lady Ashton is shrewd. She'll vote for whoever makes the strongest argument. So we need at least 3 of the 5. We need all of them. Rowan stopped pacing, looked at her. If even 2 vote against us, it creates enough doubt to damage everything we've built. We need unanimous rejection of Edmund's challenge. Alara felt her stomach sink. That's impossible. No, it's just very, very difficult. He moved to the desk, started pulling out papers. Which is why we're going to do what you do best. We're going to find the weakness in their armor and drive a knife through it. What weakness? Edmund's. He's challenging the marriage on grounds of fraud. But fraud requires proof of intent to deceive. Can he prove you intended to deceive me? No, but can he prove I didn't know about your circumstances? When I have letters, witnesses, documented conversations proving I knew exactly what I was getting into? Alara felt something spark in her chest. Hope, maybe. Or just the faintest edge of it. You have documentation? I have everything. He pulled out a folder, opened it. Every letter from your father, every conversation I had with him about your situation, every piece of correspondence with my solicitor discussing the marriage terms. He looked at her. I knew Vivian would come for you. I prepared for this months ago. You knew she'd try to destroy us? I knew someone would. Vivian, Edmund, society in general, people like us, people who refuse to play by their rules, were always targets. He handed her the folder. But I also knew you were worth fighting for. So I made sure I had ammunition. Elara flipped through the papers. Letters in her father's shaking hand, describing Vivian's treatment of his daughter. Legal documents outlining the marriage agreement, including a clause specifically stating that Rowan was aware of Elara's lack of fortune and entered the marriage regardless. Witness statements from Harrison, from Mary, even from some of the tenant farmers they'd visited. It was an arsenal. This is... She couldn't find words. Thorough. I don't lose, Elara. Not when it matters. He pulled her to her feet. Now get some rest. We have 3 hours before the council meeting. You need to be sharp. I can't sleep. Then lie down and close your eyes. Doctor's orders. You're not a doctor. I'm a duke. Close enough. He guided her toward the door. And Elara, when we walk into that council room, I need you to do something for me. What? I need you to be exactly who you were at the ball last night. Not apologetic, not defensive, just unbreakable. His eyes held hers. Can you do that? She thought about Vivian's face when she'd caught that slap, about Lady Pembroke's grudging respect, about every person who'd ever told her she was nothing. Yes, she said. I can do that. The council meeting was held in the formal dining room, the long table cleared of everything except papers and tea service. 5 people sat waiting when Elara and Rowan entered at precisely 10 o'clock. Edmund Blackmore sat at the far end of the table like he was already the Duke. He was in his 30s, handsome in a cold way, with dark hair and eyes that calculated everything. Next to him sat a heavy-set man who had to be Uncle George, looking uncomfortable. On the other side was a sharp-faced woman in severe black, Aunt Marguerite, Elara guessed. The 2 advisors sat between them. Lord Hartley was elderly, with white whiskers and a military bearing. Lady Ashton was younger than Elara expected, maybe 40, with intelligent eyes that missed nothing. Cousin. Edmund's voice was smooth, cultured. And the bride. How lovely that you could join us. This is my house, Rowan said flatly. Where else would I be? Your house, for now, Edmund smiled. Shall we begin? Everyone sat. Elara kept her spine straight, her hands folded in her lap. She could feel them all studying her, weighing her, finding her wanting. I've called this council, Edmund began, because I have serious concerns about the validity of Duke Rowan's recent marriage. Specifically, I believe his wife misrepresented herself and her circumstances in order to secure a title and fortune she had no right to. That's a serious accusation, Lady Ashton said. Do you have evidence? I have testimony from Lady Vivian Vance, the bride's stepmother, stating that the supposed Duchess, concealed the extent of her family's financial ruin, that she led Rowan to believe she came from a respectable background, when in fact she was destitute and desperate. I was destitute, Elara said quietly. I never claimed otherwise. Edmund's eyes flicked to her. Did you inform my cousin that your stepmother had debts exceeding £10,000? That your father's estate was mortgaged to the brink of seizure? My father's debts were not my debts. And Rowan knew I had no fortune. I told him explicitly. But did you tell him the full extent of the scandal? That your stepmother is now being pursued by creditors? That association with you could damage the Blackmore name? The only thing damaging the Blackmore name is this meeting, Rowan said coldly. Elara told me everything I needed to know. I chose to marry her anyway. Because you were deceived about her true nature. I knew her nature better than you know your own. Rowan's voice could have cut glass. And frankly, Edmund, this is pathetic. You want my title? Fine. Be honest about it. But don't hide behind manufactured scandal. I want to protect our family legacy from a fortune hunter. She hasn't touched my fortune. If anything, she's increased it. Rowan pulled out a ledger. Since taking over estate management, my wife has reduced expenses by 15%. improved tenant relations, and exposed fraud that was costing us thousands annually. If that's fortune hunting, I'll take it. Uncle George cleared his throat. That's all well and good, but the question remains. Was the marriage contracted under false pretenses? No. Rowan slid the folder across the table. Everything is documented. Letters from Alara's father detailing her circumstances. My responses confirming I understood and accepted those circumstances. Legal agreements stating explicitly that this was not a marriage of fortune but of choice. Lady Ashton pulled the folder closer, started reading. Her eyebrows rose. This is quite thorough. I'm a thorough man. Edmund's jaw tightened. Documents can be fabricated. Are you accusing me of forgery? Rowan's voice went dangerous. I'm saying this marriage happened suspiciously fast, that a girl from nowhere suddenly becomes a duchess, that it strains credibility. What strains credibility? Aunt Marguerite spoke for the first time, her voice sharp as a whip. Is that you think we're all stupid enough to believe you care about family honor, Edmund. You want the title. You've wanted it since Rowan's father died. This girl is just your excuse. Edmund's face flushed. Aunt, I assure you, don't. She waved a dismissive hand. I may have despised Rowan's mother, but I respected her spine. And from what I saw at the Ashford ball last night, this girl has the same. She looked at Alara. You caught Lady Vance's hand before she could strike you. True? Alara met her gaze. Yes, ma'am. And you told her to leave, in front of half the ton. Yes. Good. Vivian Vance is a grasping, manipulative creature. She deserved worse. Marguerite turned to Edmund. I vote against the challenge. The marriage stands. Edmund looked like he'd been slapped. You can't be serious. I'm always serious. The girl's got spine. That's more than I can say for most of the simpering fools you wanted Rowan to marry. Lord Hartley was still reading through the documents. These letters from her father are quite affecting. He clearly loved her very much. He did, Alara said quietly. He was a good man who made some bad investments. That doesn't make me a fraud. No, Hartley agreed. It makes you unfortunate, which is not a crime. He looked at Edmund. I see no evidence of deception here. The Duke was fully informed. The marriage was legal. I vote against the challenge. 2 votes down, they needed 1 more. Uncle George was sweating. But surely, the appearance of impropriety, there is no impropriety, Rowan said, unless you're suggesting I'm not capable of making my own decisions. Of course not, but then what's the problem, Uncle? That I married someone I chose rather than someone the family chose? That I made a decision without consulting the council first? The council exists to advise, not to control. Rowan leaned forward. And let me be very clear. If this council attempts to annul my marriage, I will fight it, in court, if necessary. And I will make it my personal mission to uncover every piece of dirty business every member of this family has tried to hide, including yours, Uncle. George went pale. I don't know what you... The gambling debts? The mistress in Dover? The money you borrowed from Edmund that you can't repay? Rowan's smile was cold. Should I continue? That's blackmail, Edmund snapped. That's insurance. You want to play dirty? I'll bury all of you. Rowan sat back. Or you can vote to uphold the marriage, go home, and we all pretend this meeting never happened. The silence was suffocating. Finally, Uncle George nodded. I vote to uphold the marriage. 3 votes. But they needed unanimous rejection. Lady Ashton was the last holdout. She'd been reading through the documents, her face unreadable. Now she set them down and looked at Alara. Tell me something, Your Grace. Why did you accept his proposal? Alara blinked. I'm sorry? You were poor, desperate. A duke offered you salvation. That's easy to understand. What I want to know is why you accepted knowing what it would cost you. What it would cost me? This. Lady Ashton gestured around the table. The scrutiny. The doubt. The constant battle to prove yourself. You could have refused him, found another way. Why didn't you? Alara thought about that freezing room Bob in Greymere. About the choice she'd made. Because I was tired of being nothing, she said quietly. Not tired of being poor, tired of being invisible, of being told I didn't matter. When Rowan proposed, he didn't offer to save me. He offered to stand beside me, as an equal. And I thought, maybe that's worth fighting for. Even knowing you'd face exactly what you're facing now, especially knowing that. Elara lifted her chin. I'd rather fight beside someone who respects me than live safely with people who don't. Lady Ashton studied her for a long moment. Then she smiled, small but genuine. Your mother would have said the same thing, she told Rowan. I vote to uphold the marriage. This challenge is baseless and insulting. 4-1. It was over. Edmund stood so fast his chair scraped. This is absurd. You're all being manipulated. We're done, Edmund. Rowan's voice was final. The council has voted. The marriage stands. And if you ever question it again, I will have you removed from the family entirely. Understood? Edmund's face was pure fury. But he was outnumbered, and he knew it. This isn't finished, he said. Yes, Rowan said quietly. It is. Edmund stormed out, Uncle George scurrying after him. The advisors stood, gathering their papers. Your Grace, Lord Hartley said to Elara, I wish you well. You've married into a complicated family. I've survived worse. He smiled. I believe you have. After they left, only Aunt Marguerite remained. She stood slowly, came around the table. I love my nephew, she said to Rowan. Your father. But he was a bastard. Cold, controlling, cruel. Your mother fought him every day of their marriage and never broke. I hated her for it, for being stronger than I ever was. She turned to Elara. You remind me of her, that same steel. Don't lose it. This world will try to grind you down. Don't let it. I won't. Good. Marguerite patted her hand. Welcome to the family, child. May you survive it. Then she was gone, leaving Elara and Rowan alone in the silent room. Alara's hands were shaking. The adrenaline that had kept her upright was draining away, leaving her hollow. We did it, she whispered. You did it. Rowan pulled her close. You were perfect. Better than perfect. I thought Edmund was going to... He was always going to lose. He just didn't know it. Rowan pressed his forehead to hers. But you, the way you stood up to them, the way you answered Ashton, that was all you. I was terrified. I know, that's what made it brave. She laughed, shaky and relieved. Is it always like this, the fighting? Probably, but it gets easier, and we get better at it. He pulled back to look at her. You proved something today, Elara. Not just to them, to yourself. You're not the girl in Greymere anymore. You're a duchess. A real one, and no one can take that from you. Edmund will try again. Let him. Next time we'll be ready. He smiled. Besides, you've got the council on your side now. Even Marguerite. That's half the battle. A knock at the door interrupted them. Harrison entered, looking unusually pleased. Your Grace, several messages arrived during the council meeting. Lady Pembroke has invited you both to dinner next week. Lady Ashton wants to discuss estate management strategies with the Duchess, and Lord Ashford is requesting your presence at his next hunt. Elara stared. They're accepting us? The verdict spread quickly. Apparently several people at the ball last night were impressed by your handling of Lady Vance, and word of the tenant farm reforms has reached town. Harrison allowed himself a small smile. It seems the Duchess is becoming fashionable. Fashionable, Elara repeated. That's strange. That's society, Rowan said. Yesterday you were scandalous. Today you're interesting. Tomorrow you'll be indispensable. He took her hand. Come on, we need to celebrate. Celebrate how? I'm taking you riding. There's something I want to show you. They changed into riding clothes and took horses from the stable. Elara on a gentle mare, Rowan on a massive black stallion that matched his temperament. They rode across the estate, through fields where tenant farmers waved, past the forest, until they reached a hill overlooking everything. Rowan dismounted, helped Elara down. Look, he said. She did. From here, she could see all of Thornhaven. The main house, the tenant farms, the fields and forests and streams. The late afternoon sun turned everything gold. This is yours now, Rowan said quietly. Not just because you married me, because you earned it. Every person on that land knows your name, knows what you did for them. You're not just the Duchess in title, you're their Duchess. That's power, Alara. Real power. She felt something shift in her chest. Not triumph exactly, something deeper, like finding a place she belonged. I never wanted power, she said. I know. That's why you deserve it. He moved behind her, his arms coming around her waist. Most people who chase power are the worst ones to have it. But you'll use it right, to protect people, to make things better. What if I make mistakes? Then we fix them, together. He turned her to face him. That's what this is, Alara. Not a rescue, not a transaction, a partnership. You and me against whatever comes next. She looked up at him, at this impossible man who'd seen something in her when everyone else saw nothing. I'm still terrified, she admitted. Good. Fear keeps you careful, just don't let it make you small. He touched her face. You're not small, Alara. You never were. You just needed room to grow. And you gave me that room. We gave it to each other. He kissed her then, soft and slow. When he pulled back, his eyes were serious. The fight's not over. Edmund will try again. Society will keep testing you. There will be more battles. I know. But you're not alone in them anymore. Whatever comes, we face it together. Deal? She thought about everything that had brought her here. The freezing room, the proposal, the wedding, Thornton's exposure, the ball, the council. Every battle she'd fought and won. And she thought about what came next, the dinners, the hunts, the endless social warfare, the responsibility of the estate, the weight of the title. It should have scared her. Instead, she felt ready. Deal, she said. They rode back as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of fire. When they reached the stables, servants rushed to take the horses. Mary was waiting with warm cloaks. Your Grace, she said to Alara, you have a visitor. Alara's stomach dropped. Who? A young woman. She says she's your half-sister. Lydia. Alara's breath caught. Vivian's daughter. The girl Vivian had tried to put in Alara's place. Where is she? The receiving room. She's quite distressed, Your Grace. She says she needs help. Alara looked at Rowan, who shrugged. Your call. Alara thought about it. Lydia wasn't responsible for Vivian's actions. She was just 17, caught in the middle of her mother's schemes. I'll see her, Alara said. Lydia was in the receiving room, perched on the edge of a chair, looking terrified. She was pretty in a soft way, blonde like her mother, but with none of Vivian's hardness. When Alara entered, she stood quickly, wringing her hands. Alara, I'm so sorry. I know I shouldn't have come, but I didn't know where else to go. What's wrong? It's Mother. She's mad, furious about what happened at the ball and the council. She's saying terrible things about you, planning to spread rumors to... Lydia's voice broke. And she's trying to force me to marry Lord Asherton. He's 60, Alara. 60 and cruel, and she doesn't care. She just wants his money. Alara felt cold rage settle in her stomach. Vivian was doing to Lydia exactly what she'd tried to do to Alara. Where is she now? At home. She doesn't know I came here. If she finds out, she won't hurt you. Not anymore. Alara looked at Rowan, who nodded. Bring her, he said quietly. Alara turned back to Lydia. You'll stay here, tonight, as long as you need. Your mother doesn't control you anymore. But she'll come for me. Let her. Alara's voice was steel. I'll be waiting. And as she looked at her frightened half-sister, at this girl who was just another victim of Vivian's cruelty, Alara felt something settle into place. She wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. She was fighting for everyone Vivian had tried to break. And this time Vivian wasn't going to win. This time Alara was the one with the power, and she was going to use it. Mary took Lydia upstairs to prepare a room while Alara stood in the receiving hall, her mind racing. Rowan watched her from across the room, not interfering, letting her think. She'll come for Lydia, Alara said finally. Tomorrow, maybe tonight. Probably. And when she does, we end this, permanently. Rowan moved closer. But it has to be your call, your fight. What do you want to do? Alara thought about Vivian's face at the ball, The hatred, the desperation, the willingness to sacrifice her own daughter to save herself. I want to give her a choice, Alara said slowly. One last chance to walk away with some dignity, and if she refuses, she met Rowan's eyes. Then we destroy her. Completely. That's not mercy. No, it's justice. She felt something cold and hard settle in her chest. She tried to sell me to old men. Now she's doing the same to Lydia. Someone has to stop her. And that someone is you. Yes, she said it with certainty. Me. Rowan smiled. That dangerous smile she was learning meant he approved. Then we prepare, because when Vivian comes, she won't come quietly. He was right. Vivian arrived the next morning with a fury that could be heard from the entrance hall. Alara was in the library with Lydia, going over estate ledgers, teaching her half-sister the same skills her father had taught her, when Harrison appeared in the doorway. Lady Vance is here, Your Grace. She's demanding to see her daughter. Lydia went pale. I don't want to see her. You don't have to. Alara stood. Stay here. Lock the door if it makes you feel safer. I'll handle this. Alara, she's vicious when she's angry. So am I. Alara touched her sister's shoulder. Trust me. She walked down to the entrance hall where Vivian stood in the center of the marble floor like a general surveying a battlefield. She was dressed in black today, full mourning, though whether for her reputation or her plans, Alara couldn't tell. Where is my daughter? Vivian's voice echoed off the walls. Safe, which is more than she'd be with you. You have no right to keep her from me. I'm her mother. You're the woman who birthed her. That's not the same thing. Alara descended the stairs slowly, deliberately. Mothers protect their children. You're selling yours. I'm securing her future. By forcing her to marry a man old enough to be her grandfather? A man with a reputation for cruelty? Alara stopped on the last step, eye level with Vivian now. No, you're paying your debts with her body, and I won't let you. Vivian's face twisted. You self-righteous little. You think because you trapped a duke you can lecture me? You're exactly what I taught you to be. A survivor. Don't pretend you're better than me. I'm not better than you. I'm just done being like you. Give me my daughter, now. No. The word hung in the air, simple and final. Vivian's hands clenched into fists. I will have the law on you. Kidnapping? Theft? Lydia came here of her own free will. She's 17, old enough to choose where she stays. And if you try to drag her back, I'll make sure every creditor you're running from knows exactly where to find you. You wouldn't... Try me. Alara stepped down onto the marble floor. I know about the gambling debts, the forged letters of credit, the money you stole from my father's estate before he was even cold in the ground. Should I continue? Vivian's face went from red to white. How did you... I hired investigators. Turns out when you're a duchess, people are very willing to dig up dirt for you. Alara moved closer. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave Lydia alone, completely. You're going to sign custody over to me. Yes, I had the papers drawn up. And in return, I'll pay off your creditors. All of them. Vivian stared. What? You heard me. I'll clear your debts. Give you enough money to live modestly. But you leave. You go somewhere far from here, far from Lydia, and you never contact either of us again. Why would you do that? Because I want you gone. And this is faster than destroying you piece by piece, which I'm fully prepared to do if you refuse. For a moment, Vivian just looked at her, really looked. And Alara saw something flicker in her stepmother's eyes. Recognition, maybe, or fear. The understanding that the girl she'd thrown into the street was now holding all the cards. And if I refuse this generous offer, Vivian's voice was bitter, then I release every piece of evidence I have to the creditors, the magistrate, and the society papers. You'll be arrested for fraud, your name will be ruined, and you'll likely end up in debtor's prison. Alara pulled out a folded paper from her pocket. Or you can sign this. Take the money. And live out your days in peace somewhere I never have to see your face again. Vivian took the paper with shaking hands. Read it. Her lips pressed into a thin line. You've become cruel. No, I've become strong. There's a difference. Alara gestured to a side table where Harrison had placed a pen and ink. What's it going to be?
Vivian looked toward the stairs like she was considering making a run for Lydia, but Rowan had appeared at the top of the landing, his presence a silent warning. She had no moves left. "How much?" Vivian asked quietly. "Enough to clear 12,000 pounds of debt and live comfortably if you're careful. More than you deserve." Vivian's jaw worked. Then, slowly, she crossed to the table, picked up the pen, signed the papers with jerky, angry strokes. "There, happy?" "Relieved." Alara took the signed papers, checked them, then handed them to Harrison. "Make sure these are filed with the solicitor today." "Yes, Your Grace." Vivian turned back to Alara, and for a moment her mask slipped. She looked old, tired, defeated. "I did my best with you," she said quietly. "After your mother died, I tried—" "No, you didn't." Alara's voice was firm, but not unkind. "You saw me as competition for resources, a burden, and you treated me accordingly. But I survived anyway, despite you, not because of you. You think you've won. I don't think. I know." Alara moved to the door, opened it. "The carriage is waiting. Harrison will give you the bank draft, and then you leave. Today." Vivian walked to the door, stopped beside Alara. "She'll disappoint you. Lydia, she's weak, not like you. She's been beaten down by you her whole life. Give her time." Alara met her eyes. "And she'll be stronger than both of us." Vivian left without another word. Alara watched through the window as she climbed into the carriage, as it rolled down the drive and disappeared beyond the gates. Gone. Finally, completely gone. Alara felt her knees go weak. She sat down hard on the stairs, her hands shaking. Rowan came down, sat beside her. "You all right?" "I don't know. She laughed, shaky. "I thought I'd feel triumphant. Instead, I just feel tired." "That's because winning isn't always glorious. Sometimes it's just exhausting." He took her hand. "But you did it. You ended it. On your terms. I paid her off. Some would say she won. She's exiled with barely enough money to survive, stripped of her daughter, her reputation in tatters. Trust me. She didn't win." He squeezed her hand. "You gave her mercy when you could have crushed her. That's strength, not weakness." Lydia appeared at the top of the stairs, her face anxious. "Is she gone?" "She's gone," Alara confirmed. "And you're staying here. For as long as you want." Lydia's face crumpled. She ran down the stairs and threw her arms around Alara, sobbing. "Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you." Alara held her, this sister she barely knew, and felt something warm settle in her chest. Family. Real family. Not the kind you were born into, but the kind you chose. "It's all right," she murmured. "You're safe now." The next weeks passed in a blur. Lydia settled into Thornhaven, taking lessons from Mary in deportment and from Alara in estate management. She was quiet, cautious at first, but slowly she began to bloom, like a plant that had been kept in darkness finally seeing sun. The social invitations kept coming. Dinners with Lady Pembroke, where Alara met other women who ran their households with iron fists beneath silk gloves. Hunts with Lord Ashford, where Rowan taught her to shoot, and she proved surprisingly good at it. Afternoon teas, where she learned the art of conversation, not the shallow kind, but the kind where real alliances were built. She made friends. Lady Ashton became a mentor of sorts, teaching her the subtleties of political maneuvering. A young viscountess named Caroline became her closest confidant, someone who understood the pressure of marrying into power. She made enemies, too. Women who still saw her as an upstart, men who resented her influence over estate matters. But their opposition felt different now, not threatening, just noise. Because Alara had found something they couldn't take from her, her own power. 6 months after the wedding, Rowan called her to his study. She found him poring over maps of the estate. "What's all this?" she asked. "Expansion plans. I've been thinking about your tenant reforms. They worked better than I expected." He looked up. "What if we did the same for the other properties? The ones in the neighboring counties?" "That would be expensive." "We can afford it, especially with the savings you've generated." He traced a finger along one of the maps. "But I don't want to do it without you. This is as much your project as mine." Alara looked at the maps.
at the scope of what he was proposing. It wasn't just estate management anymore. It was legacy building. "Are you sure?" she asked. "This is your family's land, your inheritance. It's ours now. Yours and mine." He came around the desk. "I told you on our wedding night, I don't want a wife who stands behind me. I want a partner, someone who builds alongside me. Is that what you want?" She thought about the girl in Graymere, about how small her dreams had been, just survival, just freedom, just the ability to choose. Now she had all that and more, but more than that, she had purpose. "Yes," she said, "that's exactly what I want." They spent the next months implementing the reforms across all the Blackmore properties. Alara traveled to each estate personally, meeting with tenants, listening to concerns, making changes. Some stewards resisted. She replaced them. Some tenants were suspicious. She proved herself. By the time the social season rolled around again, the Thornhaven reforms were being discussed in Parliament. Other estates were copying their model. Alara's name was being mentioned not as a scandal or a curiosity, but as an innovator. She'd become exactly what Rowan had predicted, indispensable. The ball that marked the anniversary of their marriage was held at Thornhaven itself. Alara had insisted. She wanted it on their ground, their terms. The guest list was carefully curated: allies, friends, key social figures, and a few calculated risks. Edmund was not invited. He'd tried twice more to challenge the marriage and been rebuffed by the family council each time. Now he'd retreated to his country estate, nursing his resentment in private. Lydia was there, though, looking beautiful in a rose-colored gown, dancing with a young earl who looked at her like she hung the moon. She was 18 now, confident in a way she'd never been under Vivian's thumb. She'd become Alara's right hand in estate matters, showing the same sharp mind for numbers. Lady Pembroke held court in one corner, surrounded by matrons who'd once sneered at Alara and now sought her favor. Lady Ashton was deep in conversation with several MPs about land reform legislation. Caroline was laughing at something Lord Ashford said. The ballroom glittered, music played, and Alara stood at the edge of it all, watching. "Quite different from a year ago," a voice said beside her. She turned to find Aunt Marguerite, resplendent in purple silk. "Very different," Alara agreed. "You've done well. Better than I expected, if I'm honest." Marguerite sipped her champagne. "Your reforms are making waves. Some people aren't happy about it. Let them be unhappy." "Oh, I intend to," Marguerite smiled. "I've been thinking about my own estates. They could use fresh eyes. Someone who isn't afraid to shake things up." "Are you offering me a job, Aunt Marguerite?" "I'm offering you an alliance. Your methods, my resources. Between us, we could change how half the estates in this region are run." She looked at Alara. "Interested?" Alara thought about it. About the reach such an alliance would give her. About the good she could do with it. "Very," she said. "Good. We'll discuss terms next week." Marguerite drifted away, leaving Alara smiling. Rowan found her a few minutes later, 2 champagne glasses in hand. He offered her one. "You look pleased." "Your aunt just offered me an alliance." "Did she?" He grinned. "That's dangerous. The two of you together could probably run the country. Let's start with the estates and work our way up." She clinked her glass against his. "To 1 year. To many more." He drank, then set his glass aside. "Dance with me?" She let him lead her onto the floor. The orchestra was playing something slow and sweeping. Around them, other couples swayed, but Alara was only aware of Rowan, his hand at her waist, his eyes on hers. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" "For seeing me, when no one else did." "I could say the same to you." His hand tightened. "You didn't have to accept my proposal. You could have released me from that promise and found another way." "There was no other way." "Not really. There's always another way. You chose this one, chose me." He pulled her closer. "Best decision I never knew I was waiting for. Even with all the fighting, the drama, especially because of it. Boring marriages are for boring people." He spun her and she laughed. "We're many things, Alara. Boring isn't one of them." The dance ended. The crowd applauded. And as Alara curtsied and Rowan bowed, she felt the weight of hundreds of eyes on them. But this time, it didn't feel like judgment.
It felt like acknowledgement. Later, when most of the guests had gone home and only close friends remained, Alara slipped away to the library, her refuge, her thinking space. She found Lydia there, curled in one of the leather chairs with a book. "Hiding?" Alara asked. "Resting." Lydia smiled. "My feet hurt. Lord Pembroke stepped on them twice." "He's enthusiastic, if not skilled." Alara sat across from her. "Did you have fun?" "I did. Actual fun. Not the kind where you're terrified of saying the wrong thing." Lydia set down her book. "Alara, can I ask you something?" "Always." "Do you ever think about Mother? About what happened to her?" Alara considered the question. "Sometimes. Not often." "Do you think she's all right?" "Probably. She's a survivor. She'll land on her feet." Alara paused. "Do you worry about her?" "A little. She's still my mother, even if she was terrible at it." Lydia's voice was quiet. "But mostly I'm just relieved that I'm here, that I'm safe, that I have you." "You'll always have me," Alara promised. "We're family now, real family." Lydia's eyes filled with tears. "I wish Father could see us, see what you've become." "I think he does," Alara smiled. "And I think he's proud." They sat in comfortable silence, two sisters who'd found each other against impossible odds. Eventually, Rowan found them. "There you are."
I thought you'd fled the country. Just catching our breath, Alara said. Well, catch it quickly. Lady Ashton wants to introduce you to someone, a member of Parliament. He's interested in your reform model. Alara stood, smoothing her gown. Duty calls. But before she left, she looked around the library one more time, at the books that had been her escape, at the room where she'd planned her first battle, at the evidence of how far she'd come. A year ago, she'd been freezing in a rented room, days from homelessness, staring at a letter that would change her life. Now she stood in her own library, in her own home, surrounded by people who respected her, about to discuss policy with members of Parliament. The transformation was staggering, and yet in some ways she was still the same girl, still stubborn, still principled, still unwilling to bend. She'd just learned to weaponize those qualities instead of hiding them. "Coming?" Rowan asked from the doorway. "Yes." She crossed to him, took his offered arm. "Let's go change the world. One estate at a time. One estate at a time." They walked back into the ballroom together, side by side, equals in every way that mattered. And if people stared, let them. Let them see the girl who'd come from nothing and built herself into something unstoppable. Let them see the Duchess, who refused to be broken. Let them see the woman who'd turned survival into triumph. Because Alara Vance, Alara Blackmore now, had learned the most important lesson of all. Power wasn't something given. It was something taken, claimed, forged in fire and hardship and the refusal to quit. And she had claimed hers. Not through birth, not through luck, through sheer force of will and the courage to keep fighting when everyone said she should surrender. She'd been tested by poverty, betrayal, society's cruelty, and family politics. And she'd won. Not just survived, won. 3 months later, the reforms they'd implemented became a model bill in Parliament. 6 months after that, half the estates in 3 counties had adopted similar practices. A year after that, Alara was invited to speak at a gathering of landowners about sustainable estate management. She stood at the podium, looking out at the sea of faces, some friendly, some skeptical, all watching. "A year and a half ago," she began, "I was no one. A girl with no fortune, no connections, no power. People looked at me and saw nothing worth noticing." The room was silent. "But here's what I learned. Power doesn't come from who your parents were or how much money you inherited. It comes from what you choose to do with the circumstances you're given. I was given poverty and rejection and a world that told me I didn't matter. I chose to prove them wrong." She paused, let that sink in. "The reforms we've implemented at Thornhaven and across the Blackmore estates aren't complicated. They're not radical, they're just fair. We reduced rents to sustainable levels. We invested in maintenance and improvements. We treated our tenants like partners instead of resources to be extracted. And in return, productivity increased, loyalty increased. Our estates are more profitable now than they've ever been. Murmurs of interest rippled through the crowd. I'm not telling you this to brag. I'm telling you because too many people think fairness and profit are incompatible. They're not. When you treat people well, they work better. When you invest in your land, it gives back. It's not charity, it's strategy. She looked out at the faces, saw some nodding, some still skeptical. But more than that, it's the right thing to do. And I don't apologize for believing that doing the right thing and doing the profitable thing can be the same. They should be the same. And if we're smart, if we're brave enough to try something different, they will be. The applause started slowly, then built. By the time she stepped down from the podium, it was thunderous. Rowan was waiting in the wings, pride written all over his face. "You were magnificent," he said. "I was terrifying. I could barely breathe up there. Could have fooled me. You looked like you were born to it." "Maybe I was. I just didn't know it until you gave me the chance." He pulled her close, kissed her forehead. "We gave each other the chance. That's how this works." They walked out of the assembly hall into bright sunlight. Their carriage was waiting, but Alara paused on the steps, looking out at the city. "What are you thinking?" Rowan asked. "That a year and a half ago, I stood in a freezing room and thought my life was over. And now?" She gestured at the world around them. "Now I have this, all of this. You built this. We built it, together." She turned to him. "And we're just getting started, aren't we?" He smiled, that dangerous, beautiful smile she'd fallen in love with. "Absolutely. What did you have in mind?" "I was thinking about the children in the tenant villages. They don't have schools. What if we built some?" "That's ambitious." "You love ambitious." "I love you." He said it simply, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. And maybe it was. "I love you too," Alara said. "Even when you're insufferable. Especially when I'm insufferable." They climbed into the carriage, and as it rolled through the streets toward home, Alara watched the city pass by, saw people going about their lives, struggling and surviving and fighting for better. She used to be one of them. Now she was in a position to help them. It was overwhelming and humbling and absolutely terrifying. But she'd learned something important over the past year and a half. Being terrified was fine, as long as you kept moving forward anyway. That night, after dinner, Alara and Rowan sat in the library with Lydia, planning the school project. Maps spread across the table, budget calculations, letters to potential teachers. "We'll need at least 3 buildings to start," Lydia said, making notes. "One for each major tenant village, and we'll need to hire—" A knock interrupted her. Harrison entered with a letter on a silver tray. "Your Grace, this just arrived. Marked urgent." Alara took the letter, broke the seal, read it. Her eyebrows rose. "Well, that's unexpected." "What?" Rowan asked. "It's from the Queen. She's heard about our reforms. She wants to discuss implementing similar programs on the royal estates." Alara looked up. "She's inviting us to the palace. Next week." Silence. Then Lydia let out a very undignified squeal. "The Queen? The actual Queen wants to meet with you?" "Apparently." Alara handed the letter to Rowan, who read it and started laughing. "What's funny?" Alara demanded. "Just thinking about you a year ago, in that room in Greymere. If I told you that in 18 months you'd be advising the Queen, what would you have said?" "I'd have said you were insane. And yet," he gestured at the letter. "And yet," Alara repeated, shaking her head in disbelief. But beneath the disbelief was something else, something solid and sure. She'd earned this, every impossible step of it, from the moment she'd refused to release Rowan from that promise. Through the wedding, the council challenge, the confrontation with Vivian. Every battle, every victory, every moment of terror and triumph. She'd earned the right to stand in palaces and speak to queens, not because of who she'd married, because of who she'd become. That night, lying in bed beside Rowan, Alara stared at the ceiling and thought about the future. "What happens after the Queen?" she asked the darkness. "Whatever we want," Rowan said. "That's the beauty of it. We're not playing anyone else's game anymore. We're making our own rules." "That's a lot of responsibility." "Good thing you're good at responsibility." He turned toward her. "Are you happy, Alara?" "Really happy." She thought about it, really thought. Yes, she said finally. Not because everything is perfect. It's not. There are still people who hate me, still battles to fight, still days when I wake up and can't believe this is my life. But I'm doing something that matters. I'm making a difference. I have people I love and who love me back. And I'm not afraid anymore. Not of being nothing. Not of being too much. I'm just me. And that's enough. She rolled to face him. So yes, I'm happy. He kissed her, soft and sweet. Good, because I have plans for us. Big plans. Bigger than schools in Queens? Much bigger. Should I be worried? Probably, but you'll love it anyway. She probably would, because this life she'd built with him, this partnership of equals, this constant push towards something better, was exactly what she'd been looking for without knowing it. Not rescue, not safety, not even happiness, really. Purpose. And she'd found it, claimed it, made it hers. Years later, when historians wrote about the great estate reforms of the era, they would trace them back to one source, the Duchess of Thornhaven. The girl from nowhere who'd married a duke and changed everything. The woman who'd refused to be broken by poverty or cruelty or society's expectations. The Duchess who'd turned survival into power and power into legacy. But Alara didn't know about the history books yet. Didn't know about the schools that would bear her name or the laws that would cite her reforms. All she knew was this. She'd been invisible once, overlooked, discarded. Now she was unstoppable. And she was just getting started. In the end, that was the real transformation. Not from poverty to wealth, not from commoner to duchess, from invisible to essential, from surviving to thriving, from broken to unbreakable. And no one, not Edmund, not Vivian, not society itself, could ever take that from her. Because she'd earned it, every impossible inch of it, and she would spend the rest of her life proving that the girl from Greymere had been worth noticing all along.